I threatened to write a book. The movie The Wolf of Wall Street, I was laughing that everybody thought that was somehow scandalous. I was like, that's just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Empower Her, where we empower women specifically in business towards their personal and financial freedom. Today's guest is none other than powerhouse Miss Kelly Perkins. Miss Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. You are an incredibly accomplished wealth manager with 30 years of experience. And now you have your own wealth management firm that you personally run yourself. We just want to thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you
And
for
then,
having me.
absolutely. And of course, we've got my amazing business partner and co-host of the show, Miss Shannon Nakua.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Absolutely. If you guys didn't know, Shannon actually inspired this entire movement, just being able to work with very valuable, powerful minds in business, right? And collaborating together to really straighten each other's crown, accomplish big things in business. That's specifically who we represent on this channel. And so, we got to bring the fire. So, of course, Miss Kelly brings that right up. Kelly, can you share with us, your experience and what you've accomplished and who you are in the wealth management space?
Goodness, that's an all-encompassing question. I first want to preface this with I started when I was two. Um, I hear 30 years experience. I think that this speaks to a much older person. I started on the desk at Bear Stearns in the early 90s. I was the only woman in the first ever only and last training program at Bear Stearns. I learned to trade on a big trading desk, just like in the movie Wall Street, where there's big long banks and the trading platforms are kind of built in and the phones are built in. I learned to cuss like a sailor and calculate deltas in my head. And I have a mean right arm now because it was so loud on the trading floor. If you wanted to get a sales assistant's attention, or we had cold callers that sat around the perimeter, if you wanted to get another trader or another person's attention, we had sleeves of tennis balls under our desk, and you would just reach down and you would haul off, and you don't want to hit anybody in the head, but really right between the shoulder blades was ideal. So those were I learned a lot at Bear Stearns. And then after many years there, I went to Morgan Stanley for 5 years. I did a decade at Smith Barney. And then Morgan Stanley bought Smith Barney. After a brief stint at RBC, I opened my own firm in early 2012. So I've been in the Crescent virtually the entire time. I've moved elevator banks. I worked for all the big houses, and there's just an amazing amount of institutionalization that's gone into wealth management that my clients and I simply were just intolerant of. Lots of here's how you do it, and here's what you put your clients in, because these institutions view clients as a revenue source.
Yeah.
Instead of giving advice, they looked at it in terms of what kind of products can we push on our clients. I love my clients. We do weddings and funerals and vacations and everything else. So I'm kind of stopped there. I could just expound forever, but that's really some of the things that I think speak to me. Clients first. I advise on everything that they touch in terms of financials.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is, Kelly, you absolutely know your stuff. You have a deep knowledge there. And when we do the Empower softball team, you are going to be on it. And we can also vacation together. So that was fantastic for sharing all of that with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You are welcome. I threatened to write a book. The movie The Wolf of Wall Street, I was laughing that everybody thought that was somehow scandalous. I was like, that's just a Tuesday.
Yeah. I I find it funny how people were idolizing that, to be completely honest, right? For
Yeah.
that specifically. Yeah.
It was worse than that, frankly. It is so baffling to me because I heard anyway, just the iterations of now how there's respect for women, whereas back then, I mean, I could tell you some stories, but it just was non-existent. So
I I would love to know what that term specifically, respect for women, means, because I don't know. I can imagine what it's like in your world, but me being in the software world where I started also when I was two, I was a genius and I was putting things together. Uh, but there was, a lot of, you go to a conference and things like that, and there was a lot of harassment because the whole total technology, it was at the time was only 10% of women, right? And so a lot of times people think, oh, the geeks or whatnot, and they're not, right? So there's that. So I think it's impressive how far women have come in this time, but I think there's still a long way to go for that.
I agree. I mean, something that might surprise both of you is that you'll see a lot you'll see a lot of the industry, the financial industry, everything from banks, brokerage, wirehouse, I mean, the whole enchilada, they'll talk about how there's women are almost on par with men. It's complete BS
It
because
is.
actually they're including all the licensed assistants, back offices, anyone that has a license, they're lumping into that because actual women of the caliber that produce, that do what I do, that manage client assets or an investment banking, we're about 12% of the industry, even now.
Wow.
So we haven't come very far, and unfortunately, there's no one coming. The big houses stopped doing trading programs and hiring at 2000. So there's none of these training classes that they used to build and grow. That was the easiest thing to cut, and they've never come back.
Why did they cut them?
Now, think about it. When the dot com, correction happened, these industries, all of these big firms, the big houses, figured out super quickly how that they were training 100 kids a month. Okay, Morgan Stanley would send 100 kids to New York every single month and put them up in hotels, and they would train on the 85th floor of World Trade South. And they
Mhm.
would spend a month in New York at all on Morgan Stanley's dime.
Yeah.
Well, 1,200 kids a year times, all of those hotel and training and flights and all of that. Every major house on the street did it. What's the easiest way to cut your cost?
Yeah.
Just stop doing it the next month. And they immediately could save, millions,
Tons.
millions
Yes.
and millions. And then once all the houses did it, remember, we lost a decade in the markets.
Mhm.
From 99, 2000, we didn't get back to break even on the S&P or the Dow until 2013.
Yeah.
And they all looked at each other saying, why do we need to do that? They
Correct.
were using it as a prospecting platform, and it just, they never brought them back.
Yeah, because they don't need them. They're going to find another way to get what they need, right?
Right.
Without spending millions of dollars. So we've done it for this long. We can continue to do without it.
But 23 years later, here's what's coming. 65, 70% of every advisor out there today is
Mhm.
a middle-aged white male over the age of 65, nearing retirement.
So what do you think would attract more females to the space?
Bring the heat. There's no one coming. We need women. We need voices of women. My clients are varied. They're not women. They're not men. They're everyone. And they all say the same thing. You address my issues. You explain things so magically in a way that I understand it. I feel comfortable calling you. But it's a unique quality, I believe, better suited to women. And I'm very cautious to say men do this and women do this. But in this industry, I found that men can be very patronizing to people. Oh, don't you worry about it. You just, what you need to understand or what you don't understand is this is how it's done. And they try to drown
Yes.
them in technical garbage. And that's just not, it doesn't flow. That just doesn't float anymore. People
Yeah.
want the expertise, but they also want a relationship with someone that actually knows them. They don't want to be put in a cattle trail to
Yeah.
be, you know?
Right.
Well,
Like,
now
how does
too,
this specifically, how do I apply that specifically to my situation? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, you don't want the firm model, like here's
Right.
Y and Z. If anyway, I mean, there's so much wrong. Our business is a general rule is using a playbook from the 80s, and it
yeah.
does not work. It
Hmm.
doesn't work. And but the men, think about the large number of men as advisors. They came of age and they were big time in the 80s. That was
Yeah.
their heyday. So they're just wash, rinsing, and repeating because it's always worked.
Well, do you find that typically, we've said that there's middle-aged men who are doing the financial, but they're talking to other men. They're not talking to females. The dynamic is changing a lot where females are making a lot more than men. I feel like
Yep.
there's two different ones. There's the stay-at-home mom, right? And then there's the women who are coming in and they're just dominating their field. They may be few and far between, whether that was forced upon them because they had a subpar partner, or like I said, we have these stay-at-home moms. And one of the things that scares me about the stay-at-home moms is more often than not, they put all their financial liability or in the hands of their husband. And so there's many things that could happen. The husband could pass away and the wife has no idea what's happening. The husband could, there could be a divorce and then now she's not prepared to go in and make money. So I'm wondering, what are you seeing how women can get more involved with whether they're the stay-at-home mom or they're, the powerhouse independent woman who's making majority of the money? It's two different scenarios. For each scenario, how do you feel that women can get more involved in their financial stability and success?
So I have all of these women as clients, and mainly the stay-at-home moms. I believe there's two segments of those, and I basically want to smack both of them because let's start with my mother. My mother and father have been married for 55 years, and yet she doesn't even know how to balance the checkbook, how to pay the
Yeah.
bills, none of it, because that is his job. And I don't know that he would relinquish that either. Now, thankfully, they both trust me, but she's a knucklehead. She doesn't know how
Yeah.
to do these things. She doesn't know what the cash flow is, where the life insurance, I mean, it's a little mortifying because typically women outlive their husbands. So this is a rising threat for our parents' generation, and this is a big part of my initiatives with my clients, is not just themselves, but get in front of your parents' finances because you
Yeah.
don't, if you find out you have a problem, it's way worse
Hmm.
than being proactive. The
Yeah.
second group, the second group, I want to shake them too. Those are women of my peer group and younger who are married who, no, it's way worse than you think. They have no credit of their own. Their husband, they have one account with a debit card. Their husband will push money into it like an allowance
Hmm.
every month, and then they can go to the grocery store, but they have to ask for permission to use some of that money. Now, some of them are a little more lenient, but a lot of them do not have access to the family finances. They do not have access to the investment accounts, nor do they understand them. And they all, I mean, I can name, I won't call them out, 10 women. They're like, oh, but my husband has a folder. It's called the crisis folder that'll tell me where everything is if anything happens to him. I'm like, yeah, sugar. And what if he comes in and he has found some cute young thing that he's decided he's going to run
Exactly.
off with? Then where are you now? You don't even have credit in your name. You cannot buy a home because you don't have earned income.
Hmm.
You can't buy a home. And if you have no credit history, and she's like, oh, well, I'm the mother of his children. He would take care of me. I'm like, really? Is that
Is
how you're going
that
to
your
protect yourself? That's your
exactly?
plan? Hope it works.
That's your survival plan.
Well, yeah, Cynthia
Oh,
has heard me say how many times when I get on, Kiki, my high horse there, it's astonishing to me the stay-at-home moms who don't grow a skill set. They put, and more often than not, the men do leave them, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, or they have such control, they weaponize the finances to
yep,
keep their wives in check.
yeah.
Like you are allowed to have this. I've seen it time and time again. I live in the suburbs. I live in a pretty predominant area where most of the females are stay at home, and I've seen it time and time again. So, uh, back to the question, like, what are some things that? So, are you saying educate yourself, ask the questions?
Have a seat I mean, really and truly, I mean, you need to be able to talk about money in your marriage. And if there's some hesitancy from your spouse on either side, that's a red flag.
Mhm.
And you need to educate yourself, reach out to people like me. I am trying to put together just some, lunch and learns or podcasts, just breaking down basics. But get your own advice. Find women in your neighborhood, put together let's educate ourselves instead of a book club or mahjong or tennis
Mhm.
or whatever. Learn the language of money,
Mhm.
whether you need it for your own marriage. And by the way, I got 8 calls during the pandemic from women in their closets sobbing because their husbands had decided he up and wanted a divorce. The
Mhm.
pandemic kind of forced a lot of this, and they had no idea
Mhm.
what they needed, what they had, and all they said was, he said we don't need to get a divorce. He'll take care of it. I was just like, so yes, education and really networking and finding resources like me or podcasts. There's so many cute Instagram people talking about, money and finance. It's not rocket science. It's just not. The money either comes in or it goes out.
Mhm.
It's really, really simple.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. Now, so we talked about, the stay-at-home moms. What about is it the same for the people who are making the money,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, those people are great. They're like me. I mean, the Hot Mess Express. I booked 10 ways till Christmas. I'm raising 3 kids, a single
Mhm.
mom in a company. I am the managing trustee of a 5 generation multi oil and gas nightmare. I am booked 10 ways till Christmas every single day. Thank
Mhm.
goodness this is the thing I do. But for most of those women, finance is something that gets backburnered. So
Yeah.
they've either got everything in cash sitting in an account, or they've got a will that leaves everything, husband and wife are leaving everything to each other, which with the estate tax thing looming, that could be a problem. But it gets ignored because their focus is on their day-to-day job, which is building a business or being that high-powered position, whether it's an attorney or anything, an entrepreneur or a tech. It's just all of it. They need to partner with someone who isn't just looking at the investments. I can make people money all day, every day. But what I do is tackle them and keep them from doing really ill-advised things about structures and about, oh, I want to take money out of an IRA and buy my son a car. I'm like, no, you're not. I mean, just stuff like that, just the basics of navigating life and putting them in positions to succeed where they don't wake up one day and go, wait a minute, why is this like this? I'm like, yeah. So
Mm.
Which leads me to another really great question I have here. There's so many things going on, right? We always have, oh, well, my uncle is a self-proclaimed financial genius, and then the voices that come in there. So we kind of talked about the education part, but with the lack of stability in the market and the financial landscape, we're up and down. There's lots of things that are really happening in the world And we've gone from just United States, but now we're, the whole world impacts everything that we do. How do you help your clients focus on their goals while mitigating risk? We were talking about this earlier, like taking them out of panic mode and preventing them from listening to the self-proclaimed person or making those silly decisions like, oh, I want to buy my 16-year-old a car.
These are retirement assets. Yeah, sorry. And too, Cynthia, literally, Shane and Cynthia, here's the deal. If Robbie Bobby's best friend's neighbor's niece's housekeeper's nephew likes a stock, you shouldn't buy it. Unless that person is gainfully employed and doing well and in this business, or they're completely retired and they have at least 10 years of trading history and a track record. You give me any bad idea stock on the planet. You name it. We could go find literally, a widget company that is really a bad idea. I can find you where it shows up in a newsletter as the greatest thing ever.
For sure.
We are drowning in information, searching for wisdom. And unfortunately, the voices, just like in politics and in drama, the voices that scream the loudest get people's attention. So the marketing, the cousin, whatever it is, it's really not rocket science. If you've never heard of it, it's 10 cents a share, but it's the sure thing. Odds are that's probably not the way to go. Not when you have companies that are killing it, whether it's NVIDIA or, they are best in class. Whether it's Google or Apple, everybody's walking around with an iPhone. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to try to make $10 million. It doesn't happen. Just do the right thing. So I tell people all the time, turn off the TV, because if it bleeds, it leads. So whatever's on television, then they're trying to get your attention and create fear. The only thing I trust nothing. I trust no one. I trust the flows in the markets.
Yes, the data and the trends, right? Doesn't
The
lie.
data, man, the numbers don't lie. They don't lie. But these are some of the stocks I watch. This is the one truth that I believe. Flows, movements, technology. We were down 475 today with the NASDAQ down 225. That tells no lies.
Yeah, I'm glad you're only watching a couple there. I wouldn't want you to be overwhelmed with that. So I'm glad you're just really focused on just a few.
Right.
It's my happy place. Don't ask me. I can't, don't ask me to do yoga or get a massage. I'm like, oh, finally, a world that makes sense.
Wow.
I know, a girl after my own heart. I would have everybody, even my husband's like, it's not the data and the trends. I'm like, it literally is the data and the trends.
Right.
That's the only reliable thing in the world, right? When you said I trust nobody, I trust nothing, I trust the data and trends, I had heart emojis coming out of yes, finally. Yeah.
Don't ask me to bake, bedazzle, or be room mom, but I will volunteer and do your spreadsheets, your P&Ls, and run your balance sheets, and there's a place for that.
There you go. Very valuable place for that.
I know. I have to tell you, yeah, I'm not big on the one time I tried to join the PTA and we were doing this whole thing and I'm looking around and I see the people going and I'm trying to explain to them the theory of constraints. Like when they do this, these PTA moms looked at me like I was out of my mind. So I quickly figured out oh, these are not my world. I belong in here.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I get it. Yes. So
you literally could have been wearing a sack and speaking in tongues and dancing with snakes. It would have had the same response.
I think it would have had a better response if I'm 100% honest. I think they would have been like, this is great. Maybe throwing some quarters at me that I could have put into my investment fund. There you go.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelly, you just brought up market trends and data, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't lie. So where does it truly say, just for those of us that want to hear some truth, right? Rather than the hearsay on MSN, CNN, BNN, whatever, right? Where is the world right now at on December 20th, 2023?
Here's the
Where would
thing.
you say?
I would say the world, we are in such a different and better financial position than where we were in 2008 in the financial crisis.
Right.
I've been saying for the last 2 years, there is no recession coming. We are still feeling the impacts of a pandemic unwind, which was the greatest hard stop in history. Talk about a black swan. There's so much more money in the system. Corporations, companies, and even individual families are in a much healthier position from a debt perspective. We just don't have the same factors that were in place in '08. So from a perspective of where are we going, we have half the number of stocks traded on the exchanges worldwide than there were 20 years ago. So with more money and less stocks and companies with a lot more access to capital. Now, these rates being up here, it won't be up here for long. The rates are going to start to come down. Worst case by May, for sure by July. Just sure, but by the sheer fact that you are hurting, not the big boys that rebalanced all of their debt going into this. Over the past 18 months, they refinanced all their debt to super low rates. Corporations, companies, it's the small businesses that you're hurting the worst, and the lowest end of our population that maybe needs credit cards, that needs to float. They can't buy cars without taking a new car loan, and they can't get mortgages. When you've got mortgages at 8% now, you are hurting the lowest end of our socioeconomic food chain. And politically, going into an election year, that won't fly.
Yep.
So rates are coming down. There's more cash out there than ever before. People are more educated than ever before. People are, during the pandemic, a lot of people opened brokerage accounts. And a lot of people started learning to trade and picking up some of those things. I like everything I'm seeing. AI is a game changer. But really in unintended consequence kind of ways.
Yeah.
Airlines are going to make a lot more money because people are thinner and their clothes are thinner. And Walmart and all of these Costco are seeing food sales dropping. Fast food companies, they're having to change their food options to healthier version. I mean, it's interesting. So there's several factors, which all sum up to, without giving you the War and Peace of economic reporting, I think the next year is going to be phenomenal. And I think that we're in a wonderful position to really, make some really good advances on our portfolios in the next couple of years for sure.
That's excellent to know. I mean, I see, so many people on YouTube saying the market's going to crash, 2024 is going to be the worst housing market, worse than 2008, and it's like, where are they coming up with this data? And where are they getting all of this from? And why do you think it's a bunch of horse shit?
But you remembered that. So that stuck out to you. Whereas if I give you literally rainbows and unicorns, you're like, oh, okay, that's great and all. But they say it's going to crash. It's super salacious and it strikes to the heart of your fear. The bottom line is the millennials kind of missed the whole progression of go to college, get your first job, get married, buy a house.
Yeah.
They skipped it. They were doing experiences and they were traveling the world and working remotely until the pandemic hit them upside the head. And they were like, this apartment isn't going to cut it. They're starting to buy houses. They are starting to buy houses like crazy and they're playing catch up. Meanwhile, the generation below them is right on track and they're more family minded. So the housing market's not going to crash. It's just a little bit stunted because you've got, mortgages over 7.5% now.
Right.
And when you go and you look at how much you make, we do have inflation, right? And you go and you look at how much you make, and so maybe I could have afforded a $450,000 house, but now that you have inflate or interest rates at 8%, I can only do 275,000. And the
Right.
way
There's
the
nothing at
pandemic- there
275,000
isn't. There
anymore.
used to be. There used to be before COVID, right? We could
Yeah.
find, but now everybody from New York and California and all these places, they sold their houses for a mass amount of money, and they came here and they were paying cash and driving it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's true. And I mean, I'm in the suburbs. I'm close, but that's true. People are coming in and paying cash, and these homes aren't even hitting the markets. They're having
Right.
people send letters to every house on the street saying,
Yep.
here's our price, take it or leave it, cash offer,
Yeah.
we'll close in 30 days, no inspection.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's almost no questions asked.
No, seriously. And that's starting to change a little bit, but the housing market, I'm not worried about the housing market. I think once rates start to come down, it'll all jump back up
Yeah.
because of these demographic factors, pandemic factors, and thank you, the two coasts finally getting the clue that we have great weather and no
Yeah.
state income tax. They're emptying into Texas
Yeah.
and specifically Dallas, Houston, and Austin.
Mhm.
It's just an interesting time to be a Texan for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We always say, please don't bring your politics to this grand old state.
I
It's
know.
wonderful for
Don't
a
change our
reason.
colors, please.
Right?
Hold on. I always say Texas is the greatest country in America.
There you go.
It is. Hey, we could secede at any time. We have everything we need. We can grow it. We have all the fuel we need. We could launch our own army. We have seaports and mountains and plains and prairies and creeks. We got it all.
Yes.
There you go.
We have people who buy ammo by the pallet here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have,
Seriously.
yes, we have
Yeah.
a gun store or range and barbecue on every corner.
There you go. The greatest state in America.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, close us out with some really key strategies, right? Like, we're definitely calling you to manage our wealth and to help us make solid decisions that will, set our family, right, our lifestyle up for the future, right? Because literally, just about every big key move that we make, we really should be advised well on this, right? And so because you know so much about, different laws that are happening, what are some really key strategies that, people, especially with a higher net worth, right? Like what must people do in order to protect their assets, right, in the coming year so that people don't stand to lose money?
Well, there's two issues. So one of the things they did is they raised the estate tax limit about 10 years ago with the understanding that they would expire. So TikTok, that's coming. The estate tax exemption limits that are today over 12 million, they'll be 14 million per person next year. On December 31st of 2025, they expire and they all go back to $5 million. That is coming, like it or not. No politician is going to stand out on the ledge and fight to keep those in place because they allow couples to pass as much as $28 million next year, estate tax free to their children.
Mhm.
And obviously that is not going to bode well to the populace that looks at this. But here's the issue. You can have a net worth far lower than $14 million, but when it comes back to 5 million, if you're not structured correctly, segregating your assets, husband and wife, so you each use your exemption, you can use all of that big exemption today by placing some of your assets in irrevocable trusts, 678 trusts, LLCs. I mean, one of the things that I'm looking at is my son is 18. I own his car. He's on my insurance. I need to partition him away from me because his driving puts me at risk personally.
Right. Yeah.
So there's some weird stuff like that, but bigger, higher net worth, please also know if you have life insurance, if you own your policy, it may pay out to your beneficiaries tax-free, but the value of it is in your own estate. So that's a huge thing that people do not realize, that your house, your assets, your investments, your company, and your life insurance are all a part of your estate. And that everything, every penny over the exemption is a 50% tax to the IRS. And I've had to write some of those checks because I can't unwind it later. You have to have you have to get in front of it. And that's with your parents' assets too. So I am racing over the next 2 years to get to family members and high net worth business owners saying, let's partition your ownership. Let's create shares. Let's go ahead and put all of it in trust to freeze that value and protect it from estate taxes. And in the markets, protect your assets. Don't be an idiot. And if everything you own ends in an X or is in an ETF and is being rebalanced, again, don't be an idiot. That it does not work. The last 6 clients I brought in over the last 2 weeks had accounts all over the street, and their portfolios were within 1% allocated identically. And that's because they're all using the same model, forcing it to the same deal, and people aren't making any money.
The stale, male, pale model.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. Well, Kelly,
Awesome.
thank you so much for joining us here today. We
Yeah.
love this conversation. Would you go ahead and share with our audience how they can reach you?
Because I guarantee you'll be bringing on more clients here pretty soon.
Oh my gosh. And so my phone, well, do you want phone or email or what do you want?
Your preferred method.
Yeah, your preferred method of communication.
Okay, so my preferred method of communication, I say that because I'm having to, we just had a new email and I can't remember my own email. Isn't that horrible?
Well, I will, while you're
Chris
thinking
to
that up.
Okay, there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It is K Perkins at hpwealthpartners.com. And my phone number is 214-730-5444. I'm also on the internet, obviously, at hpwealthpartners.com.
Thank you. We will make sure that we post all of your contact information and any socials that you have in the comments so folks can make sure that they get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I teach at the business school at SMU and I have for 19 years. Gosh, I can't believe it's been that long. So I really do have a lot to say and I'd love to mentor and give people information they can really use.
Oh, I love that.
Fantastic. Well, you'll be receiving a call from me also. So
good. That's my prevailing strategy, or my words of wisdom is don't murder the money, don't be an idiot, and educate yourself or ask the questions of people that can really give you clarity.
When we say, hold on, I want to go back. When we say people who can give you clarity, we are not talking about your sister's mother's cousin. We're not talking about somebody who lost their crypto key or anything else. We're talking about somebody we're talking about Kelly. We're not talking about anybody else. Just call Kelly. Let's
Bobby
call Kelly.
Right.
Yes.
Bobby, and anything that can be hacked out of your computer by a 14-year-old on the other side of the world is really not a good investment strategy either. The whole crypto thing. Yeah, no, I'm out.
Wow.
I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much, Kelly.
Right?
Yeah, seriously. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had a wonderful time just being empowered in this moment. Understanding that there is so much more of a strategy that goes into, our finances and our, financial autonomy, right? Especially for us women out here that are out here kicking butts, taking names, 3 different ways to sideways, right? Like that's just what we do. So you are a wealth of information for women just like us. And we really, really appreciate your time and, your intelligence. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun, and I look
Good.
forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
Yeah.